Perfect. Okay. So, quick introduction. Sherry Monroe is our moderator for this panel, and she's the executive director at AMGTA. Then we have Leslie Frost, director of marketing at 6K Inc. Emily DeSimone, director of marketing at SLM Solutions, and then Rosa Koblenz, VP of Sustainability and Communications at Stratasys. I leave the floor to you.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, wherever anybody is. It's morning here in Florida. I'd like to thank this awesome panel for assembling today for our conversation. I was watching a lot of the conference yesterday, really great conversations, everything from aerospace to chocolate. So really heard some great stuff yesterday. So I'm Sherry Monroe. I'm the Executive Director of the Additive Manufacturer Green Trade Association. We're a trade association focused on the environmental impacts and benefits of additive manufacturing. So that's sort of our sweet spot is additive manufacturing and sustainability. And so what I wanted to talk about today, and I've assembled this amazing panel to talk about participating in trade associations, advocacy groups. You know, we're just one of many that are targeting very specific niche areas, whether it's geographic or sort of the issues that they're working with. And so I thought it would be helpful for this group of folks to be able to talk with the audience and kind of explain sort of their company strategy, their sort of personal strategies as in their roles in their organizations, of how they approach this, what they're looking for, how they kind of determine what groups they want to participate in, and sort of what they're looking for. What's the value strategy? What are they looking for and their expectations? So first, I think I'll just kind of go around the group here and let each one of these ladies introduce themselves, kind of talk about, you know, what their organization is doing in terms of working with these kind of groups, and kind of give a quick intro, and then we'll dive into some questions. So Rosa, you're in the top corner on my screen here. If you want to take it away, and I think your mic might need to be turned on there.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay, good, great. So pleasure to be here today, Rosa Koblenz from Stratasys, and really pleased to represent Stratasys. Like you said, we see ourselves in a leadership position around sustainability, but also as a 30-year-old company with a really rich history in innovation. We really see the next phase of innovation as a shared one for our industry, for AM, as the technology is now so advanced and ready for manufacturing use cases, that we think it's really our responsibility to join forces with other like companies, and then with, of course, the non-government organizations and other trade organizations to really push forward the agenda of 3D printing a better tomorrow, which what we call at Stratasys mindful manufacturing, which means rethinking the manufacturing process as you insert AM into your supply chain. And we don't think that doing this alone is the right path, or what will really, you know, take the entire additive manufacturing industry forward. So we see a role in that, and we also love the collaboration partnership aspect.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Rosa. How about you, Emily? And thank you to Emily for getting up very early this morning to join us.
This is like sleeping in for me. I don't know what you're
Emily has a small baby too, so she probably doesn't have any normal hours.
Yeah, I don't. But thank you. Happy to be here. Also, love the term mindful manufacturing. Whoever came up with that in the marketing department did a good job. I'm Emily DeSimone. I lead global marketing at SLM Solutions. I've been in additive for arguably since high school. So I've seen both the plastic side of things and now into the metals. So it's been a really fun journey for me. In regards to SLM's kind of stance on why we see value or what we're evaluating. We're always evaluating partnerships because we truly can't do it alone. I think it doesn't make the most sense for us to also paint ourselves really thin in that. So leveraging partnerships and associations who help kind of lead the way and guide us as to where we should be thinking and adding resources. I think as a manufacturer, I think this is something Rosa touched on, but as a manufacturer of equipment that makes things, I truly believe that we have the moral responsibility to always be striving for a more sustainable future. And so whether that's the reduction of weight or local for local production or leaner supply chain, recyclable powders, these are the common terms that we use, but it's an end goal that should never be complete because I think there's always something that we could be doing better. So by partnering with these associations, we're not only keeping ourselves accountable, but also knowledgeable about, ongoing research, excuse me, to always be doing better.
Terrific. Thanks, Emily. All right, Leslie, I think we need, there you got your microphone.
There you go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, Rosa and Emily really hit the nail on the head. I think we have so much to learn and we have so far to go. And the best way to do it is to join forces with other companies that are also looking to drive sustainability, to drive additive manufacturing, whatever the cause may be. And there's so many different advocacy groups out there and different associations, and they're all really geared and focused on one particular main goal. So that's, I think, one of the big advantages of joining these groups is, as a company, you could be looking at many different things. Sustainability is obviously key, AM and doing design for manufacturing and all of these things. So if you have a particular group that's really focused on that and you're listening to what other companies are doing, it's only going to help everybody move forward. And with additive manufacturing and being as young as we are, I think we can certainly use all the help we can get. So I think that's really probably one of the best things about these associations and groups.
Great. Thank you. So that kind of keys up one topic that I know in conversations I've had with the three of you and other members within our organization, and as I talk to companies that are looking to join, one of the things they talk about is that sharing of information. What do they want to share? Are they going to be, in a situation where they're in a room essentially, or in a conversation or a working group with a competitor, and sort of how does that work? What can they share? How does collaboration work when you're talking about working with your competitors? So maybe each one of you could kind of touch on that and sort of how you see that, how you approach that, and how you kind of use that rather than seeing it as a challenge, as a benefit. Maybe we'll start with Emily this time.
Well, clearly there's no competition, right? No. I think it's really easy to have that competitive spirit and to go into these conversations. However, on topics like this, it's really a collective synergy amongst the industry as a whole, and we all should be moving forward in that direction. So I think it's easy to get caught up in that, but like I said, topics like this, you kind of just need to remove your competitive hat and see it as, you're sharing learnings amongst an industry to do better. So why you would see that as I don't know. I think it's personally great to see people pushing it and seeing how we could leverage what they might be doing in a similar way or the same way. I don't think it doesn't feel cut off if someone's making strides in this industry for sustainability. It doesn't feel like that's them and we can't do that. I think it's simply the competitive drive to want to do the same or even better, I think is still there. So I think it's you need to remove your competitive hat and see it as a network in which you can leverage to do better.
I absolutely agree with that. And part of the reason I titled this session Growing the Pie, Growing the AM Pie, was that idea that, this is growing and expanding exponentially, and that sort of collaborative spirit really just grows the market. We're not a static market where we're sort of fighting over the bones. Really, we're growing this market. And with that sort of spirit of how do we work together to make it bigger, there's really plenty of room for everybody to be successful and sort of carve out their niche and really go after it. Leslie, how do you guys see this at 6K? And Leslie, you're also very involved with AMUG, not just at 6K, but you're involved in the industry in a variety of ways. So what is sort of your take on that?
It's funny you bring up AMUG, because I always see that's, for those of you who don't know, it's the Additive Manufacturing Users Group, and it started 30 plus years ago, and it was really started to push additive manufacturing. And I always felt like if you go to AMUG, you kind of take off, Emily, you mentioned this, you take off your company hat and you put on your additive manufacturing hat. And everybody is really there to push the industry. Where are you struggling? What do you need? Standards, anything at all, they come together, and they're not sharing IP, obviously, but from a competitive standard, it's in, and my boss always says this, in this particular industry, all boats rise in a rising tide. And I really feel that's true, because the industry is so young and because we have so much to learn. It really does help when we all come together and we all pull our resources and we just move the additive manufacturing industry. So I think a lot of these associations, the competitiveness actually is what makes it, because we're all striving for the same thing. We're all focusing on the same problems. So if we work together, it's really going to move us all. I think that's how I feel. Even about competitiveness in any of these associations, I really think that we all need to work together.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Rosa? I know you and I've had many conversations around this.
Yeah, so Stratasys became a founding member of the Additive Manufacturer Green Trade Association because we really believe in, I think I said this before, a term called CoOp Petition. It's really, competition is not a bad word. It's not the dangers of your competition, the value of coming together, all these like-minded super professionals in our field to push us forward. If we look at ourselves as AM industry, so it's a small industry, but if we look at ourselves in the larger manufacturing context, we have a long way to go. Now, what Leslie said, if we will not join forces to create standards, to create a shared voice around what our customers expect from us in sustainability, we're going to be filling out questionnaires. We're going to be answering, I do it on a daily basis, surveys for the aerospace customers, for the automotive customers, if we're up to standard on their sustainability metrics. And if we don't come together to standardize this for our industry, we won't be able to cross the chasm into manufacturing in a big way, any of our companies. So this CoOp Petition is something I believe it's a must.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that anymore. One of the things that I think was Leslie mentioned was standards. How do you see that sort of, working together, the need for establishing standards? How do you sort of see that approach and the importance of organizations like this and helping make that happen? Maybe start with Leslie.
So we working with ASTM on standards, and I think standards is probably one of the key things that we need to figure out in additive manufacturing. There's a lot that we don't know as far as creating those standards because it is so young. And with 6K, we're manufacturing powders. So one of the big things, advantages that we have is we take in used powder, we take in recycling powder, but the value is in how you handle those powders. So one of the things we're working with ASTM on is really putting a standards together on how to handle your used powder, so you as the customer can get the best value out of it, and we as a manufacturer can use it to create the next virgin powder. So I think anytime you're working with any type of standards, you really need to lay the ground rules so everybody knows moving forward that this is the base, this is the foundation, this is what's going to get you the best, whether it's working in aerospace or in any type of a regulatory industry. They need those standards in order to move forward. And I think that's a place where we have a lot of room to grow in additive.
And I think standards by definition, right? It means you have to be working with other people. If it's just a standard for you, it's really not a standard. It really allows customers, for the industry to sort of leapfrog forward rather than just everybody doing their own thing, because that really creates a challenging situation for customers. And sometimes it doesn't, it can feel like, well, let's keep them with us, but sometimes it renders the customer sort of stuck, like they don't know what to do. Everybody's doing something different and they're trying to figure it out. And especially where for companies that are just getting into additive, I think that if it's too confusing or too daunting, they may just say, you know what, let's just keep doing what we're doing and let somebody else figure it out. So I think that cooperative effort around standards can really help move everything forward. What do you think, Rosa? What's your sort of take on that?
Stratasys is a member of many different organizations, like you said, not just the AMGTA, with the AM, have lots of organizations in our industry that have an agenda to improve sustainability by bringing the metrics, the research. We're doing lots of research work at the AMGTA these days to put like the numbers and the data. We while inherently believe that additive manufacturing is greener or better than traditional methods, but we don't have yet the data. And like we see in other industries, if we won't create the big data, each of us with our research, which is kind of a shared bucket of information about the different use cases, and then extract the insights into some kind of playbook, I just don't see us competing in a meaningful way in the manufacturing sphere in the next 10 years. Our customers are more advanced in the sustainability journey than we are, and so to play catch up, each company on its own, customer by customer, use case by use case, it won't push our industry forward.
Right, absolutely. Emily, what's your take on that? I know sustainability can, in particular, can be a challenging issue, if you're just looking at maybe one company's part in it, but there's a much bigger story that's not just how much power does a printer or a particular process use.
Yeah, I think, so I would just to touch on what Rosa had stated, yes, we can say that 3D printing is a more sustainable green manufacturing tool. Maybe, right? I mean, not everything that's manufactured should be manufactured. Not everything that's 3D printed should be 3D printed. I think, it's another tool. And when used responsibly, it makes a lot of sense for, as long as you're finding some value out of it, whether it is, leveraging the benefits that we all say, local for local production, weight reduction, highly complex. Yeah, I would say, I mean, our printers use a lot of energy to print, and that's, we're very transparent about that, and no way to hide it. And we don't want to. But for how we look at sustainability, yeah, we can't say that the printers are, green LED or solar powered. I mean, that's not true. So we really look at the end result, right? If you're using our technology to, accelerate your mission, then where are the benefits that you're using in order to obtain that end result? And usually, otherwise it's likely that it wasn't ever 3D printed in the first place. There is multiple benefits that we look at. So I mean, it's been amazing. I think when we think of standards, I kind of see it as like every company is speaking their own language, and it really needs to become more universal. And I think that's really I think people are going to push us to make that happen as industry becomes more mature in that stance. But also, I mean, we listen to our customers. The reason why we have our own internal teams that evaluate powders, energy usage, all of that. But if you listen from an internal team, right, no one's going to buy that. They want to do their own research. So by partnering with these organizations and associations, they're keeping us accountable that what we're saying is what we're doing. And I think that's really important.
And I think associations like the AMGTA and others are able to tell sometimes even a bigger story. So, like Emily said, a printer, does use a lot of energy in producing a part. But sometimes when you look at the bigger picture of that part production, if you're if you're able to produce parts on site and not have to send them halfway around the world on an airplane, it may not be that your savings is in the actual production of the part. It's having it where you need it, when you need it, not having to fly things around, and being able to get other systems up and going more quickly. Whether it's a wind turbine or something like that, where it's not the part production itself, it's the bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, the part itself can be improving efficiency on the airplane. That's what we really try to focus on.
Right. And I know in the LCAs that we have currently underway and life cycle assessment research that we're doing and projects that we're planning for the future, many of them look at that bigger picture, right? Not just the part production, but the source material production, the printing process, all of that, and then, inventorying of parts and the life of those parts. So there are a lot of issues to look at there. How do you think, when you're looking at organizations like the AMGTA or other organizations, there's many organizations, we even participate reciprocally with other organizations. What do you sort of look for in your kind of payback of these? Sometimes people ask me, what do we get, for our membership? And it's not like you get a box of stuff, right? It's more of a relationship versus a transaction. How does each of you sort of evaluate organizations to make sure that it's a good fit for you, that you're getting a good value? And what do you see as your sort of participation in that? Maybe each one of you could start talk about that a little bit. Maybe start with you this time, Rosa.
So when we look at participating in an organization, and there's many organizations, America Makes, and Women in 3D Printing, it's a real part of our agenda at Stratasys to be part of the community that we operate in. And I think what we get out of it, we built a strategy for sustainability before we began the actual activity, and it has 3 pillars. And one of the pillars was this positioning. And I think that when you have the third parties and your membership, it's part of your commitment as a statement and your positioning in the market that you belong to something bigger than your own company as part of your strategic agenda. So when we see the strategic agenda that is aligned with ours, and of course, it's no one here at Stratasys a day job 2 years ago to put out these life cycle analysis, but an organization committed to that every day. We want to be part of that. So I think that the payback is it's like a win-win situation, because we bring our use cases, our technology, our ecosystem to the organizations we belong to, and then they bring us the value of day-to-day promoting sustainability when we're doing our day job. So it's just it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your take on that, Emily, in terms of participating and all of that?
I think we've had this conversation too. So what do I get for it, right? So my personal take is there's the personal and then the company take. My personal take is I'm not going to pay X amount of dollars to stick a logo on our website. That is not my interest. So as much as what we commit to, I want to make sure that we're an active participant. And I hold our team accountable in that, mostly because it comes from my budget usually to participate.
That's the reality of it, right?
It's the reality, but it's let's manage our say and do ratio. If we're going to be a member of something, we need to show up and not just sit in the background. And so I really see that as an important metric for us when we evaluate these. But also for what Rosa said, you have these associations. We're a part of a few, and it's really increased over the years, which I think is good, because that also means that these associations are also being born, which I think is important. But with that, we have hired someone that's actually completely dedicated to evaluating these partnerships, monitoring our activity in them. Which ones do we participate in? Which ones do we not? If we're not participating, why is that? Or what are we looking for in order to move forward with them? So I think that is really important. It's something that also these associations, while we're doing our day jobs, we have these associations that are lobbying on our behalf, or saying this is how you can be speaking to sustainability. I'm not a sustainability expert, and as much as I would love to be more educated in that, that's what I'm leveraging this partnership for. I need to become more educated as to how we can speak to it, and then find some similar causes, because like we said earlier, our machines are not solar powered. So how can I leverage talking about sustainability, which is a very broad topic, kind of educate me on the ways in which we can dice it up and speak to specific things that are applicable to our technology and our business. So I think, it could be a very intimidating topic, sustainability, right? Are you sustainable or not? I mean, it's like a trigger question, right?
Yes.
But I think it's more of the path of education that, we're just committing to. So.
I think
and a network
really
of
good
knowledge.
point.
Yeah.
I think you make a very good point that you can leverage. This isn't the only topic you're thinking about all day long, but you can leverage a group that is thinking about this all day long, and being able to put together stories, whether it's research, LCAs, or just sort of helping understand and tell that story. I think that can be a really good leverage point. What is your take on that, Leslie? Because you're involved not only in your day job at 6K, but your involvement with AMUG and other groups. What is your thought on that?
Well, I think both Rosa and Emily said the main thing, I think, for these to get value and what do I get from it is it needs to be important to your company. Because if you're bringing on an association or joining just to have, like you said, the logo on your website, you're really not going to get the true value out of that association. The association needs to be something that is important to the company. And more importantly, you have to have somebody that's leading that association connection that also feels it's important, because you have to give enough in the association in order to get something in return, whatever that may be, whether it's sustainability, learning more about sustainability. You mentioned LCAs. We did an LCA. We've done a couple others with partnerships. I mean, this is all something that you can't do alone. You need other companies in order to make it something that is going to grow. And that partnership, that information sharing, that expertise, that knowledge, I think is all something that you can gain from these associations. But again, you get what you give, or you give what you get. You need somebody that it's got to be important to the company, and it's got to be important to the person that's really in charge of that association in order to get the best value.
Absolutely. And I think for, organizations like ours and many and other organizations too, I think sort of by their nature tend to be those groups of people, right, who are often looking to collaborate, right? So there are some who maybe are looking for, something to put up on their website and then go about their business. But I think certainly with this group of folks in your companies, and I know our membership by and large, really are looking to move things forward. It's a group of people that are very much looking to collaborate and to share ideas and to help move things together, looking for projects and things to be able to do together. Um, in terms of looking at sustainability, which is sort of our focus of this, how important do you see, that focus on seeing the bigger picture, right? Not just maybe your particular product, although that is a focus, but helping your customers understand the bigger picture of additive manufacturing, right? It may not be just a part for part comparison, but understanding a bigger picture, and being able to leverage associations to help tell that bigger story. How important is that? Is that for you? Maybe start with you, Emily.
I was hoping I was going to be last on this one, but I'll take
Okay,
it.
Happy to go first.
I bet Rosa has a ready answer for this.
Go for it.
No, just sustainability. It's a journey that we're on with our customers as well. So the third-party validation of whatever data or process we will build around building the sustainability use case, we call it, in terms of sustainability, there's scope 1, your own emissions, scope 2, the emissions of your operations, and scope 3, the emissions that are created at your customers with your products. Okay, so we're really focused strategically on scope 3, which means that we believe that the true value of additive manufacturing for Stratasys, and I believe for all of our companies, comes when we help our customers to implement smartly and understand what that means, our technology and our abilities. So we can't do that alone. Like if I will now speak with the customer, create the data, and then Stratasys will publish the data. The validity of that data without the third party, it's like any other research project, is not the same as when I have the additive manufacturer, Green Trade Association behind it, together with an expert or a university and a peer review. It's a totally different a piece of information. I've seen in our industry, and it's not criticism, but lots and lots of, very high level, no depth behind it data around sustainability. And it's not that it's greenwashing, but the practice of the deep work around creating the true data for sustainability happens together with the associations. It will not happen in-house at Stratasys, and it will not have the credibility it needs and the checks and balances if it will.
Absolutely. Maybe Leslie, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think for sustainability, you're correct, and it is a huge picture. It's a big picture, right? It starts from the mining of the material or the making of the material, and it moves to the creation of the part, the designing of the part, and the efficiency of the part, and then end of life. So it's a complete story, and it's all different pieces. And I tell you, when we did our LCA, there was so much that we didn't even take into consideration. So we did it, and they're asking all these questions. Yes, and we didn't even take these particular points into consideration when we were looking at like how we move the material or the raw material here. What does that look like? So then when you partner with all these others, we're partnering with Fraunhofer and customer, right, to see if we can get a glimpse and it's only one story, but a glimpse of that full picture. And then the more full stories we get, from all these other customers and all these other research, it's only going to help us improve and understand, like, okay, so if I bring them all together and store them, I save this much from an LCA standpoint, like, or from a sustainability standpoint. And you move these little levers and you learn a little bit more, and we're all just going to benefit, because that's really the full picture of sustainability. And when you're focused on powders like we are, you don't get to see the full picture. So partnering with everybody else to really understand that full picture, I think, is super important.
Right. And I think you're really, I think you're spot on, because like you said, the actual production of the powder can take, a fair amount of energy to do that. Just like with, at SLM, looking at the power consumption of the machine itself, but understanding the bigger picture of what this part or this production enables is really important. And I know Emily and I had a great conversation at FormNext around this, and talking about, helping customers understand too that bigger picture of how that goes in there. And what are your thoughts, Emily?
Yeah, I feel like I'm more prepared to answer this now. So
very early this morning and have a small baby. So
no, I think from our take, it's not to be honest, the sustainability factor of this, if it ends up, like I said, there's a reason why it should be 3D printed, right? And that's really, our machines are, in a tier of itself. You get what you pay for, and our machines are fantastic. And so, when you think of leveraging a technology like that, you're not just, really prototyping. More often than not, you're going to print that end part. So when we look at it from that standpoint, and how, you're displacing casting, or you're displacing, this and that machining, and you're just printing the end part itself and then going into a post-processing step. I mean, we kind of, when we evaluate the end part at the very end of the process, after it's been tested and they're moving forward with it, then we're like, oh, it's sustainable for these ways. To be honest, sustainability is probably not what we're leading with here, and evaluating our technology. It's usually because it's a highly complex part that you couldn't manufacture any other way, that is going to improve your efficiencies, or, so when we look back at it, it's more of a, oh, look at this. But usually it's not our leading cause. It's usually an evaluation, a result of it.
Right. I think that's you bring up a very good point. Sometimes, and for like LCAs and comparison, it can be difficult at times, because sometimes the part that you are enabling your customer to produce couldn't be produced another way, right? Yeah. So that comparison can kind of be tricky. I recently did a presentation, and I had a picture of a very old, like, I don't know, Model T Ford or something like that being pulled by a horse. And it was, so sometimes additive is being compared to something that doesn't make any sense. And so it's really important, I think, to look at that bigger picture and understand it's not just, the energy involved in producing the source powders, or the actual, energy consumption of the printer while the parts are being made, because those two areas, have considerable energy consumption. But when you look at what it enables a company to do, and look at that full picture, when you have an independent study that can really look at the entire picture, and not having the need to have stuff sitting in a warehouse in one place in the world and being flown all over the world, when you start to include those factors, the advantages of additive become clear very quickly. And I know in the life cycle assessments will be concluding this year, we'll look at that full process, and really to help folks really understand, where is it better, where is it worse, and where, what the full picture looks like.
Sherry, I think that's a great point in itself, though, is that, more often, I think this was more so a few years ago. I feel like personally, I don't see this happening as much. But, people would say, oh, what does it cost? What's the cost difference between if you were to injection mold this or 3D print that? And everyone gives like the brick, right? What does it cost to 3D print a brick? And it's like, well, why would you do that? Right.
Do that.
So I think to your point, like we shouldn't, as much as we need to be held accountable for sure, but also I think we need to be recognized that our processes as an industry are different. And so I think you can't really do that, apples to apples. It's not very applicable. It's, in my mind, not applicable all the time. And more often than not, we're in, our own category. If you're manufacturing or at certain levels, you should look at all manufacturing technologies, and then decide, as the same that you would do in our industry. You should evaluate everything, and then, where it makes sense for your manufacturing volumes, then make a decision.
Right.
And by part, the sustainability value proposition shifts by use case, by part, by sometimes we see it even now when we're getting a little more into the data-based approach, by location, because energy consumption at certain hours in certain locations in the US and in Europe, not the same machines, same part. So it's it's really complex. We call it DFE, or design for environment. Okay, so there's DFAM, like design for additive manufacturing, where, like you said, Emily, in aerospace, you can, design lightweight parts and they have inherent value for that. That's, leveraging the value of additive manufacturing. But if you were to maybe take your processes and parts and design for environment at the get-go and not find the value at the end, we find a lot of times, we only do use cases where sustainability is profitable for us. We don't do sustainability just, we want to grow our business while we do it in a responsible way, but we want to grow our business. It's our promise to all of our stakeholders. But we see often that you said that in the past, part of the decision-making process was cost. But I think that what I see now is a new trend, that some of the processes actually now they're looking for the sustainability metrics and benefits in the footprint, because they need to report on that eventually. That's the trend coming soon, that the GRI, SASB, all the sustainability standards will marry with financial reporting, and it will be a must and a regulation and compliance for these companies. They will pay a premium for the sustainability metrics and the sustainability offering that we have. And so that's why I think we all need to come together and bring the data and the products, because it's good for our businesses.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that's one of the things that we're looking at with the LCA results that we did. It showed, about 92% reduction in energy and carbon. So now we're trying to look further, and we're partnering with a few people to see, is there a way that we can assign carbon credits? So if you use our powder, like to get that financial and that, so that I think is going to be the next level for sustainability, is understanding what the carbon credits might be, like how you can use it. So is the part saving not only lightweighting the part, but instead of using 25 assemblies, is it using only one? So now you don't have to put it together and it's not going to break as easily. Like, how does that full picture come together, and what?
And maybe it has a longer life, like it lasts 10 years instead of 5 years. That's very sustainable.
Yeah. And you have a digital inventory that complements it, and you don't have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe a big part of this is, what is it enabling? I just popped in to kind of look at some of the questions here, and Katerina, I think, has popped in to help facilitate that as well. But sometimes evaluating these things, can be challenging, or at least feel challenging, especially if you're just, evaluating one part of the process. You may say, wow, this isn't, or your customer may say, gosh, this is, very energy intensive. But understanding the bigger picture and the potential for what this enables, and being able to tell that bigger picture. And I think that's one of the things that associations like the AMGTA help with, is sort of putting together all the players along that process, that production and use of those parts, where you can, look at where's it better, where's it worse, and what's transferable, and how that works. So yeah, there's a lot to take in and understand.
And we will each maybe do 1 or 2 LCA this year. Sherry, you will do multiple. So that's very valuable information for us.
Right. And looking at very different areas, we're going to have some very interesting ones that look at metal powders, that look at, polyjet, a variety of things in different industries that I think will be not only understandable within the AM community, but understandable to the sustainability community that doesn't really understand additive manufacturing, doesn't really know what it'll do for their business. And we have the ability to go out and tell that story, explain to them what additive could do for their businesses in a way that helps us grow this pie. That's part of the title for our session, was growing that pie and expanding companies coming into additive manufacturing to really achieve those sustainability gains.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm afraid the time is up, but since it's such a nice discussion, if you want to still take 5 extra minutes to answer a couple of questions, I'm fine with that, I think. If
so
stick around.
There's a question here about energy consumption. Let's see, accessibility of AM production, access to supply chain partners. Right, there are many factors that go into understanding sustainability, I believe. It's energy consumption, it's the materials, there are many factors that go into this, and I think helping within your own organization, your customers, helping them understand this bigger picture is really important. And I know through the LCAs, the assessments that we're doing, the research that we're commissioning is really to try to be very transparent and understand a full process, right? Not just sort of cherry picking, well, let's just look at this part because this part's more sustainable. No, you really need to look at the whole thing and understand, where is it better, where is it not? And then what parts of that are transferable to other uses and to other industries, and really kind of projecting out, looking at some of those and saying, well, if we're able to change this, or if we're able to change that, what does that do to the calculations? I think those things are really important. Do any of you have anything to add on looking at those different factors?
No, I think you said it. Like every piece, it's an additive thing, right? And it's not additive manufacturing, but every piece adds to the story. So you have to look at the full picture, because in maybe one particular section of printing, this particular part might not be sustainable, but when you take the full picture of everything else that's part of that story, it becomes a nice sustainable story. So it really is all in the full picture.
Right. And I see there's a question here from Bjorn, and he's asking about, understanding those parts and the understanding the sustainability of that. And sometimes, like we said, sometimes it's not the story of the actual part production. It may be that, what does this part enable? If you're able to lightweight a part and now enables, electric flight, well, there may be your benefit. The benefit may not exist in the actual part for part production, but if you really look at the use phase of this part, you may be enabling something, for wind turbines or electric flight or other types of things that when you really look at the entire picture, that's where your gain is. And really helping customers, especially I think companies that are looking to get into additive or going from just prototyping into real production and use, is helping them understand that story. And that's a big part of what the AMGTA is here for, is to help our members tell that story, put those stories together, and really just better understand it in a very transparent and understandable way, in an effort to grow our market and really have a positive impact on the globe. Do you ladies have anything you'd like to add to that?
I do. We recently evaluated a case study. Actually, funny enough, it was with carbon. So customer was evaluating a drone bracket in carbon's epoxy and our aluminum. and it gave them the option to decide, which was incredible. But the epoxy part was cheaper to manufacture. However, the aluminum part was lighter. And when they started looking at their stringent requirements, it's a military drone bracket that houses a camera. I think they're still in the testing phase of it, but it gives them the power to decide what they're going to be leveraging the most. Is it the cost factor of it, or is it the light weighting? And I think Rosa mentioned DFAM earlier, which I think is incredibly important. I don't like this phase that is trending the phrase that's trending right now, saying like death to DFAM. DFAM is important. And I think it allows you to have a certain guideline of how to make decisions based on the part. And so I think not considering that when you're making when you're designing the part is kind of at a loss, because then you're not leveraging the technology for what you're using it for, which I think is a mistake. However, I think it's also our job to help educate as to how you can design for additive manufacturing that is not overwhelming. So I think that it is our role to offer a curriculum in some way, or offer software. Like we have free float software that you can use less material, which ultimately uses less powder, which is ultimately using less cost, right? So I think there's ways in which the manufacturers should also kind of help bridge that gap for our customers as well.
Absolutely. Well said. And like you said, and as we've, I think, all kind of mentioned, there are going to be applications like Bjorn mentions here that you really can't build some of these parts any other way. And so sometimes that story is that you're now able to do something that you weren't able to do before. But quite often that in itself is enabling something that has a bigger story to tell, whether it's, putting satellites in space, or it's, enabling, more environmentally friendly flight, or things like that. You can't always do that part for part comparison with traditional manufacture, because some of these parts you simply can't manufacture any other way. But it's really, what does that part enable that may be where the story is? And partnering up through associations, I think whether it's our association or others, gives you that way of kind of coming together to tell that bigger story in a way that's sort of independent, and doesn't just feel like marketing material, right? It's really educating customers and potential customers and users, and really understanding the power and the potential of additive manufacturing. So yeah, that's great. I don't know, Katerina, if we're hit our time limit. I know we're
I was just about to say, I think we are a little bit over, but it's fine.
Okay.
It was a very enjoyable discussion. Thank you all very much.